Hey everyone, welcome to the Camino Cafe. I am so glad that you are here today, whether you're listening to us on our podcast or you're watching us here on our YouTube channel. And I am beyond thrilled to have Dan Mullins here with us today. And I just thank you so much, Dan, for doing me the favor of coming on the show. And I have been a longtime fan of your podcast. I have walked many miles listening to your show. So to have you here tonight is just a real honor. So thank you for coming to the Camino Cafe.
Leigh, I'm absolutely delighted. I interview so many people. I actually get very nervous when I get interviewed. So I'm a bit sort of like, oh, but I'm certain it'll be fine. I'm really excited, and congratulations on this great initiative, bringing people together. And Camino Cafe is a great idea.
Oh,
And
thank you.
I think it's great. Yeah, and I've been watching, and I've seen some of my old friends on there. So on your past episodes, so it's good. I'm really pleased to be here.
Oh,
Far away.
Well, it is weird to change places. I wondered if it feels weird to you now, because you've done what, like 275 or so episodes?
Yeah, 225. But
225. Okay.
it is weird for me because, and working in the media as I do, I'm always the one doing the interviewing. I'm never the one being interviewed. So it is weird for me, but I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, excellent. Well,
I'm looking forward to being as honest as everybody is with me.
Yeah, really, right? Yeah. Right. Well, I was really honored to be on your show a couple of weeks ago, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I wanted to first kind of start with your very first Camino. You know, how did you find out about the Camino? What was the first thing that you recall hearing?
Mm-hmm. So when I was a boy, I'm one of 11 children, and Mum was a very staunch Catholic, and she decided once we'd all sort of grown up that she wanted to take her faith a step further. So she started to study theology, psychology, and she had this kind of library of self-help books. I always remember, and I went to spend a summer at her house on the Gold Coast up at the beach. And I said, I really need something to read. This was in 2009. And she said, oh, you should read that Shirley MacLaine book. It's really great, about the Camino de Santiago. And I said, I haven't heard about it. She said, oh, we've only just finished studying about it, and it's fantastic. So I said, oh, okay, I'll read the book. So I read the book. I kind of didn't really understand much about it. It was a bit sort of opaque for me. And so I thought about it, and it didn't really resonate with me very much. And then the following year, 2010, my little brother Ben passed away very suddenly. And so I was back at Mum's, and it was all sort of very dark, and there were a lot of family there, a lot of people very upset, and sort of I just needed some space. So the only thing I could sort of see that appealed to me again was, I'll read that book and see if it makes sense to me a second time. So I read it again, and it did actually make a lot more sense to me. And I said to my wife, Jen, I'm going to do that one day, And then I never really ever thought about it again. And then the years passed, and many years passed, actually 7 or 8 years. And I read then Paulo Coelho's The Pilgrimage. Someone handed it to me, and I thought I should go back and revisit the concept of walking the Camino de Santiago again. And so that's how I found out about it. And that's how it was sort of part of my consciousness. But then in 2016, I was working for the #1 broadcaster, the #1 radio show in Australia. And we had been to all of the Olympic Games. I had been with that particular broadcaster, a guy called Alan Jones, for, at that stage, 14 years. And we'd been to all the Olympic Games, Beijing, and all around the world, and everything in London, and to all sorts of world events. And we were going to the Olympic Games in Rio for 3 weeks. And Alan called me in about 2 weeks or so before we were due to leave, and said, oh, look, all the sponsorships fallen through. We're not going to Rio. So I'm going to have 3 weeks off. I'm going to go overseas and have a holiday. You have 3 weeks off.
Oh, wow.
And I said, well, I can't really have 3 weeks off because my children are at school. I haven't got anything planned. I don't want to be sitting around at home wasting my 3 weeks of leave. And so he said, well, no, just, go and fly a kite or something. And so I went home to Jen, my wife, and I said, we're going to have these 3 weeks leave, how crazy. And she said, why don't you do that walk you've always been talking about, that silly walk in Spain? And as it turned out, in those 3 weeks, I was turning 50 years old. Oh. And we had been planning this big party here, and we live in the inner city in Sydney, about 4 kilometers from the Opera House, like right in the heart of the city. And we had been planning this big party, but I knew that I'd be playing in the band, I'd be buying all the beers, I'd be setting it all up, cleaning it all up. And I kind of had this back in my mind, I don't really want that party. I think I'll just have a quiet dinner somewhere. I'll do something. And then I came home a couple of days later, and the ticket for Spain was on the kitchen bench, a present from my family for my 50th birthday. And then as we worked it out, we sat down, we worked it out and sort of spaced out, okay, well, how far would I walk each day? And I was so excited, but I didn't know where I'd start, or I didn't really know anything about the fundamentals of walking the Camino. I hadn't done any training. I've always been a walker, and I was doing a bit of yoga at that stage, but hadn't really got in shape. I didn't have shoes or anything, or a backpack or anything. So it was a really exciting couple of weeks while we sort of planned the whole thing. And the only thing, to be completely honest with you, Leigh, the only thing I planned was that my little brother's name was Benedict, and I booked and started at the Benedictine convent in Samhain. Oh, wow. So that's where I started, and I booked a room rather than staying in the downstairs albergue part. I had a room upstairs and I reserved it. And when I got there, it was room 16, and 16th was my birthday. So I started in room 16 to finish 16. And to give you an idea of just how little I knew about what I was, we had dinner that night, and I hadn't walked. It was arrived and had dinner that night with some pilgrims downstairs. And as we were going off to bed, they said, well, Dan, we won't see you because we're going to have a day off tomorrow. But buen camino. And I said, sorry? Sorry? And they said, buen camino. And I said, what's that mean? And they said, it's what you say to one another. It's like the pilgrim's greeting. And I said, oh, okay. What is it again? So I didn't even know. I hadn't even heard of buen camino by the time I'd stepped foot onto the Camino. So, and that was end of July 2016. There you go.
Okay. Wow. So much there. Great story. So, I mean, really, you started with two of the most mystical stories of the Camino. I mean, they're probably the furthest from those point-to-point memoirs, that we read about the Camino. So that makes perfect sense that you weren't familiar maybe with some of the terminology and everything. So that's very interesting. What do you think that second reading of Shirley MacLaine's book, why do you think it resonated that second time?
Because she wrote about finding or connecting with that sort of deeper you, I think. And it was just the right time of my life. My children had sort of really started growing up into young men. They didn't kind of need me as much anymore. I'd been in the same job, great job, very rewarding job, but hard work, crazy hours and stuff. And I'd sort of been a musician for a long, long time. And I guess I was kind of looking for something. And I suppose that they say a midlife crisis. Yeah. I prefer to call it a midlife opportunity. Mm-hmm. And I kind of thought, well, this is a good time to just go and reassess things. And I took the time then to really, when I got there and realized how fortunate I was to not only be there, but to have my family's blessing and to have the time to do it, to have the good fortune to do it, to have the health to do it, to have all of these things land perfectly in my sphere of opportunity and good fortune. I decided to make the most of it. And I hope I did. And it had an extraordinary effect on me, to be honest. It really changed me immeasurably, and my family will tell you that. Certainly, I hope for the better.
Are they standing by? We'll bring them on the video, and we'll we'll add them to the interview. But hey, I'm sorry to hear about your brother. I can only imagine how tough that was. And so I'm very sorry to hear that. I wonder what it's like. I'm always curious to hear when somebody has so many brothers and sisters. I only grew up with a younger brother. So what was it like for you growing up? You were one of 11?
Yeah. And we lost one very early, very young. So there was 10 of us at any one stage. Mum had 9 children in 12 years. Wow. So kids everywhere. Look, I didn't know any other life. And when I think about my life, I think it's fantastic. But we didn't have a lot. But there was always a meal on the table every night at the same time. And Mum, ironed and folded our clothes, our school clothes at the end of our beds every day. When we got up, they were sitting at the end of our beds. You walked out, your breakfast was there waiting for you. There was a lunch for you to take to school. We were encouraged to be creative, encouraged to be athletic. And, still today, people say to me, I can't believe that your whole family gets on so well. And we do. There's no conflicts between siblings at all in my whole family. And there never really has been. And I think it's largely because we kind of appreciate how lucky we've been to have survived in such close quarters for such a long time without conflict, really. I'm not suggesting we didn't fight. We used to fight like cats and dogs, but now grown up a little bit, we appreciate how fortunate we are to have one another and to be so close to one another. And so it's a very special bond that we all have, So when you say, what was it like? I often say, I can fight and go along without food, and I can find clothes in a laundry basket. I'm very good at finding clothes in a laundry basket. But that's what it was like. And here's what it was. Between the ages 6 and 16, there was 6 boys in my bedroom.
6 boys in your bedroom. Did you guys ever sleep?
2 sets of bunks and 2 single beds. I went from the bottom bunk to the top bunk, and then eventually I got over to one of the single beds. Yeah.
My goodness. Well, that's great training for the Camino.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Don't worry about it. I slept best of anybody in those albergues.
Now, one of the things that always strikes me when I'm listening to your podcast, or I've been on some other interviews with you for other groups, and you're just so positive. So I'm just imagining, was your household, just like when you just the way you term things, midlife opportunity instead of midlife crisis. Does that come from your mom or from some of your siblings? Where's this positivity coming from? Such a great energy.
It's a really good question. I think it's because I don't have any intention of stopping trying. So I just got this urge to just keep doing. Yeah. I keep playing gigs, and I know dozens and dozens of musicians who stopped playing 25 years ago. Yeah. And they all say, I'd love to be playing still. And I say, well, why aren't you? And they can't answer the question. All I can think of is that they don't have the energy anymore, or they don't have the drive, or they just stop trying. I know people who say, I'm 60 years old, I'm too old to start exercising. I said, what are you talking about? I keep exercising all the time. I keep doing my yoga, or do my walking, or what have you. I keep sort of trying. And in my work, it's not enough for me to just sort of take the easy job. I always go to work and try to do the best I possibly can, and go as far as I can. I guess I keep trying. With the podcast, I could have given up 150 times. I could have given up and said, wow, I'm happy there's 50 podcasts there, or there's 100 or 150 or even 200. I could have said that easy. I could have taken 3 months off here and there, but I don't. And I think it's because I keep trying. And maybe, Leigh, maybe it's because as one of 11 children, you had to try that little bit harder. maybe you had to try that little bit harder to stand out.
Yeah.
Maybe you had to try that little bit harder to make yourself feel valued, because, and I don't blame anybody. I'm not suggesting that I was a neglected or anything. It just was the nature of the circumstances. You know, there wasn't enough time. There wasn't enough time a day for my parents to give us all the attention that we needed.
Yeah.
So we tended to be people that, and we still do, tend to be people that just go about our business and get things done and like to keep trying. Yeah. So that's what I think is my philosophy, and that's, I guess, where I get the energy from. I have no intention of sort of sitting back saying, well, that was a good life.
Yeah.
I've got so much more to do. I've got so much more on the horizon, and I'm always saying yes to things that stretch me and challenge me, and I look forward to the next challenge. There's so much to do. Yeah, that's where I get the energy out of trying to be better.
Thank you for that answer. That's a really lovely answer, to keep trying.
Yeah.
I wonder, I thought if your wife were on here, I knew one of the questions I would ask her is, does he ever rest? I mean, you've got this great career. You've got the podcast, which is like another full-time job. I mean, you're doing a show a week, and you've got your music. I mean, you've got a lot going on. You've got a full family, and you've got a couple of kids. One grandchild, or how many grandchildren?
Two grandchildren.
I mean, you are a busy guy, and I just wonder what's next for you when you look at what's that next big thing you're going to try.
Okay, well, I'm in the process right now of writing and doing pre-production on a new record. So we'll be recording it this year at some stage. The record company's really happy and vibed, and that's the next thing on the agenda. So that'll be this year's project.
Excellent.
That's this year. And then in 2022, we can't leave Australia yet. We're all locked up, and people are starting to get a bit sort of cranky about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can't leave Australia. So I don't know how much longer the government's going to be able to keep the borders closed, because there's an election coming up, a federal election coming. And so people, if that starts to resonate a little bit in the community, then I don't think they'll be able to keep us locked up. If I get the vaccines, well, I'm no more at risk than anybody else. If I'm in the Plaza Mayor in Madrid and I'm wandering around, I'm at no more at risk than anybody else. It's entirely my choice. If I want to take that risk, I should be able to take that risk. And they're going to have to eventually say, okay, well, if you want to go, you can go. But coming back in, you'll have to quarantine for 2 weeks, and you'll have to pay for that yourself. Cool, I'm sweet with that. Put me in a hotel room with some dumbbells and a yoga mat, and I'll be okay. But yeah, I think that's only a matter of time. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is that in 2022, I want to do a trip around America, doing the show that I did on the West Coast for 10 days last month, and playing for all the little Pilgrim communities and people's backyards. And yeah, so we're in the process of planning that now. So that's middle of next year. And if I can squeeze a Camino in there.
Oh gosh. Okay. So some follow-ups to that. So we did an interview with the board members of the American Pilgrims on the Camino. And at the very end of the interview, we did that just a couple of days ago. And at the very end of the interview, I asked them to tell me just a story that kind of represents the Camino spirit and whatnot. And they actually told a story that included you. And the story was about the annual meeting or the annual gathering in Tahoe, and how you still came up to play, even though there was this big snowstorm, and how you were just this trooper and played even, I think, an extra show. So I just wonder if you might want to share something from that experience with us.
Oh, I'd love to. So COVID was not really a big deal in Australia at all. So I flew out, I can't remember now the exact dates, but I flew out to America. And it was only when I was at the airport at Sydney that my friend Bill Bennett, who wrote The Way, My Way, Bill's a very dear friend of mine, rang me and said, don't go to America. And I said, Bill, I'm at the airport. I've already checked my bags and my guitar is already on the plane. He said, please, mate, promise me, don't go. I said, I'm going to be okay, Bill. I'm going for 10 days. I'll be back. He said, oh, man, I've just got a really bad feeling about it. And he's written a movie, produced a movie about intuition. And I'm like, oh, no. Anyway, so I know. So it's right. So I went, and I went down to San Diego with Bernie Bonar and everybody down there and did the show. And then I went back up to San Antonio, and Brian Danker picked me up. And then he said, look, I think, you know, it's going to be a 4-hour drive from San Francisco, or from Redwood City out to Tahoe. So, you know, and I was so excited to see America.
Right.
And so he got into his car and off we went, you know, and we got all the way out there and we pulled up in Tahoe. We pulled up in the town on the lake. And I said, I just checked I don't know exactly where the place is. And when I opened my phone, because I had international roaming, I didn't have it on all the time. I turned my phone on. Here's a message from the organizers saying, Dan, you know, we've canceled you. And we've pretty much canceled the whole thing.
Right.
Hang around. And I said, oh, no, they've canceled my talk and they've canceled my gig. And Brian Danker said, come on, we'll go up there and speak to them. So we got in the car. We drove down there, and that's when we first heard about this snowstorm. I didn't even know there was anything about a snowstorm. Right? I certainly didn't have snow clothes or anything like that. Now, you've got to remember, I've seen snow, but I've never seen snow falling. Okay. And I've seen snow like on the roof or anything like that, or on trees or anything. You know, we go to the snow to ski, but it's largely man-made, you know, okay. In Australia. So anyway, so we kind of check in, and we go up to the big room where everybody is, and they're sort of doing talks and stuff. Everyone was like, oh, Dan, we didn't think you were coming. And I said, well, we're kind of already here. and they said, oh, we'll change things around. How about you sing some songs tonight? I said, well, you tell me where you want me and what. So they said, oh, that's so kind of you, you know. So Brian and I went down to the water's edge, to the lake, with our friend Carl Sticklemeyer. Carl had come all the way, didn't tell me he was coming, come all the way from Pennsylvania to meet me. And we'd been bouncing emails back and forth about the podcast for years and talking about songs and stuff for years. And he'd never met me. Surprised me by coming all the way out there to meet me. So I was so delighted that we took the effort to get there. And so Brian, Carl and I standing down on the water's edge, and they start talking. They didn't know that they're both Vietnam veterans. So they're talking away. I'm standing on the edge of the lake, you know, it's like crazy vista, you know. I'm thinking to myself, wow, imagine I'm in America and I'm in this place, you know, it's just amazing. And I said to them, what's with those? There's like a storm coming or something. They said, Dan, it's going to snow this afternoon. I said, oh, that'd be really lovely. They said, no, like, a blizzard. And I said, what? I don't understand. What does that mean? They're like, 4 foot of snow. I said, I had no comprehension of what that means. Well, everybody went into the hall to eat dinner, but I can't eat before I play. I don't like the feeling in my tongue. So I thought I'll go over and sound check and set up the PA system and stuff. So while I'm there setting up, I didn't really notice what was going on outside until everyone started coming in. They you know, you're doing. And then I went outside, and there it was, snowing as the sun was going down across Lake Tahoe. Not just snowing, but snowing like you see in the movies, you know. Yeah. It was like, no way. And it was gathering on the windowsills and on the roof of the houses across, just like out of the movies. And on a Christmas card, you know. Wow. Because we sent Christmas cards to one another with snow on the eaves of the buildings and stuff, you know. It's like 42 degrees, like 110 degrees. And so I got up to play, and I just said, look, I just got to say before I start, you know, I've never seen snowfall before. And they all just roared, you know, like, oh my God, how fantastic. And I said, you know, you've got no idea what a thrill it is for me to see it. And later on, we were all talking, and they were all saying, oh, such a great show, such a great show. I was just like, can I just go out in the snow? True, it's just so I went out in the snow, and people were making snowballs and throwing them at me, and it was just wonderful. It was so wonderful. And that was that's the great thing about the Pilgrim community. No matter where you are, they're just lovely people who want you to be happy, and they want to be happy, and you just want to share this kind of collective joy, you know. And if you're playing at a gig, you know, they're like singing and dancing and, you know, they just want to have a great time. So it's the best audience you could possibly play for. So that's the story of Lake Tahoe, and the snow is the best part about it.
Oh, it sounded just like such a great event. I love
Yeah.
your
I was
perspective.
I was so thrilled. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. So when you, like, have any of your siblings or has anyone else in your immediate family, have any of them walked the Camino?
No.
One out of everyone.
Yeah.
So are they wondering, like, what's his obsession?
Yeah, they are. Absolutely, they are.
Yeah.
And my big brother Jerry, he has said to me that he and I will walk perhaps the Norte at the end of next year. He's a mad swimmer and a mad surfer. He's a mad surfer guy. So he's quite keen to do that. I haven't surfed in a long time. I used to a lot years ago, but I haven't in a long time. But I could still go out on the board and surf. But my skin's not really that good anymore. But the Norte might be an option toward the end of next year with my big brother. But no, I'm the only one in the family who's walked it.
The only one. All right. So if I were to interview them and say, hey, you know, what's the Dan like now compared to the Dan before he walked? Because I'm imagining they must support this obsession you have with the Camino, you know, because you obviously are doing a lot with it. Would they say that they've seen transformation in you since you walked that very first time?
Yeah, it's a 4-letter word called calm.
Calm. And why would they say?
I've always been under a lot of pressure. My job that I had for all those years was serious, hardcore, red line kind of media job. You know, it's like what you see on TV when those people are completely stressed out of their heads and completely, you know, people screaming and, you know, that was my job.
Okay.
And I don't do that job anymore, but I came back to that job after the Camino, but I saw it in an entirely different light. I saw it more as an observer than a participator.
Okay.
And I was just a lot more calm, and I'm still calm now. I don't really let things worry me because I know that it's just a waste of time. And I should have said when I walked in 2016, I broke each day up into a 5-year period of my life and thought only about those times and sort of did this very, very deep thinking. What I came out of it at the end of it was, you know, all the worry in the world makes no difference. It doesn't matter. So rather than worry, why not get active and try to make change? And that kind of, the peace really is another word, peace, that I found on the Camino. I try to carry with me every day, and that's a big part of the change in me. Yeah, and they would most certainly say that, absolutely, no doubt.
So how did you come up with this ritual where you kind of broke down different chunks of time in your life and kind of process that? What made you come up with this idea?
I have no idea, Leigh. I don't know. Honestly, if I could probably work it out in my head, because we're talking about 10, so it was 10 days, 5 years each day. And I think I walked for 16 days, or 16 or 17 days. So I must have started 2 or 3 days out of Sahun. So I must have started around Leon or thereabouts. And I know exactly where it was. It was walking between Leon and along the canals, walking to Saint Michael del Camino. So you can either go, I think you can go one way out of León, you can go through Villa Mazarif, or you can go along the highway. And I took the highway, and then you come to a sort of narrower path, and you go along the canals to Saint Michael del Camino. And it was along there I met a little old lady who was, well, first of all, I saw the roses in the garden, and what a pilgrimy thing to do, to stop and smell the roses, but I stopped and smelled them. And I said to the lady across the street, she was very old, and I sort of went like, "Oh, aren't they beautiful?" And she sort of stood there smiling with a hand on a cane. And I walked across and put my hand around her and her shoulder. And I remember writing in my journal that night that she smelled, it's terrible, but she smelled like dust. And her shoulder felt like coat hangers in a pillowcase. And she was so frail. And I said, "Aren't they beautiful?" She said, "They're mine. They're my flowers." And I said, "Oh, so you come across the street every day to look at your own flowers?" And she was like, "I don't understand what you're saying." But I was saying, "Oh, that's fantastic." Both of us were like crying. And shortly after, I sort of said goodbye to her. And shortly after, I was walking. I know exactly where I was. So, you come over the plateau, and then you can see, as far as you can see, it's just flat. And I thought, I'm going to go mad, if I don't start to do some thinking. I started to think about work. And I had to sort of almost like put myself in a trance to get myself out of thinking about work. Right. And I thought, I'll have to think of something. What will I think about? What will I think about? What will I think about? And I thought, well, while you're here, you kind of promised yourself that you'd think about your brother. And my father had passed away about 3 years before. So you want to think about your brother and your father. So, okay. And I'm thinking back. So how far can I remember back? And I thought, oh yeah, I can remember that. I can remember that. I'm thinking, how far can I remember back? So it kind of started like that with me sort of thinking, how far can I remember back about Mum and walking? How far can I think about where we lived? And then I sort of remember thinking, well, that's as far back as I can think. And I sort of got reasonably close to where I was going. And I thought, I want to wrap this up. I want to wrap this up somehow. I don't want to lose this feeling, this momentum, this kind of sense that I'd sort of reached back as far as I could go. So I thought, you know what I'll do? I'll say a prayer or two, and that'll kind of be like a time capsule, like a seal on it. And then tomorrow I might think about the next 5 years. And I was thinking, wow, that's not a bad idea. Each day I could sort of do like 5 years a day. Yeah. And then that became this kind of thing. And so then, I would think, oh, no, I can't think about that until maybe 2 days' time. But so I had this kind of spider's web of memories to navigate, and to crawl about, if you like, before I sort of made my way to Santiago. And it was an extraordinary experience, to be honest. Yeah. And I kind of even think it's not a bad thing to do just in general, not even without the Camino. And I came back in many respects with no regrets at all.
Yeah.
At all. So I guess if that's one gift I've been able to give to myself as a result of this whole Camino experience, and one reason why I'd perhaps urge others to do it or think about it, it's a pretty good thing to do.
Yeah. It's just such a brilliant ritual, and so, to me, that should be what we should be doing on pilgrimage, right? Is kind of processing our whole life. And I love how you have really put a process to it, to where you were actually able to go through each period of your life and come back with no regrets on your 50th birthday.
Yeah.
That's a midlife opportunity right there. Right? Slate was clean.
That's it. And that's why I was so desperately to get back the next year. As soon as I came home and I told my family what I'd done, my wife said, well, you'll be going back in no time just to walk for the pure joy of it. And that's precisely what I did. Precisely why I put that little guitar on my back, was to go and play and make people happy and go and enjoy myself, because the first time around was what I enjoyed it. I absolutely loved it.
Right.
It was my life. But I did kind of do a lot of head down kind of stuff, and a lot of thinking. And I think maybe it didn't have to be that kind of journey. I think people journey of discovery and of joy and celebration and sharing, and that certainly was the second pilgrimage, was a lot of that.
Yeah, is that where somewhere along the way then came on that second pilgrimage?
Yes, it did. Yeah. And that's all history now, which is great. Yeah. Do you want to know the story? Is that what you're asking me?
Well, I love that song. I love hearing it. You know that.
I was writing sort of bits and pieces here and there on the second Camino. We started in Lourdes. I walked for a while with my dear old friend Brett, and we were school friends. And I kind of played the guitar a little bit here and there. I remember writing some stuff in a little town called Saint Eustebert in France, and I sort of took the guitar really more than anything to sort of keep me company in a way. Okay. And then I might in turn keep others company. And so I was walking out of Burgos, and I'd been walking with this kind of disparate group who was slowly but surely forming a bit of a Camino family. Ended up being a very tight group of people with whom I still keep very close contact, and I love them dearly. And we kind of all sort of split up and stuff, and you go up onto the plateau as you leave, and you're heading toward Hontanas. And I had sticks at the time. The weight of the backpack with the guitar in it was making me stoop forward and giving me terrible shin splints in the front of my leg. And this doctor said, "You need sticks, man. You need sticks." And I said, "Oh, where am I going to get sticks?" This English chap said, "Here, take mine." So it meant I was walking much straighter, and I felt great, And so I could walk a little bit quicker. And so I was thinking, this is kind of cool. So I kind of strode out on my own. And before I knew it, I was on my own. There was nobody around for forever. There was nobody at all. And the sticks were going, and my feet were going. There you go, right? And I'm saying, "Oh, okay, cool." And I'm just walking on. And I always sing when I walk. And I just started singing, "Somewhere along the way, somewhere along the way, I hope you find what you're looking for. Somewhere along the way." Oh, that's a good line. What is that? And then I sang it again. And then I remember stopping, thinking, I should really stop and take a pen out of my bag and write that down and sort of work out the chords to that, because that was actually quite a good melody and quite a good line. Anyway, I'll remember it. So I started walking again, and I started singing lyrics, and I didn't realize that they were lyrics. I was just sort of singing in a kind of stream of consciousness in a way, as you sometimes do when you write songs. You just say, blah, 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 blah. You say whatever. Coming towards there now. And then I realized I sang it through once, and I even sang like a little bridge. How will I ever forget the Spanish sunrise, the Spanish sunset? I'm thinking, this is really unbelievable what's happening here. So then I finished, and I thought, I should stop. I should stop. And you never stop in the middle of nowhere. And I thought, I wonder if I can remember any of those lyrics again. And I sang it through top to bottom, word for word, every word again. And like things that I'd seen as I'd traveled. So El Camino roses, again, I'm the pilgrim stopping to smell the roses as you go to Logroño, the little hot pink rose with a soft pink rose with a hot pink edge of the petal, and I turned over the little label and it said El Peregrino, the roses, El Camino roses. They're the Camino rose along the bridge as you go into Logroño, the gardens there. We walked with a German pilgrim who used to say, I would say, what time are you starting tomorrow? And he would say, 7 bells. And I would say, oh, okay, 7 o'clock. Okay. What time are you going to walk until? And he would say, 7 bells to 4. Oh, okay, 7 until 4 o'clock. Okay, well, I'll see you. We'll most probably be there in that town about 3. So we'll wait for you at 4. We'll see you at 4. Okay, 7 bells to 4. Okay, so that's the line, 7 bells to 4. We walked through the pilgrim who was so cranky all the time. He was so angry no matter where he went. He was angry, angry, angry. We walked with him for a couple of days in France. And when we got to the top of the Pyrenees, we saw him. And those lovely, lovely soft horses up there with the big and the little eyelashes, you know, as he walked up, they ran away. You know, I said, he's even frightening off the horses, this guy. And that's the line, frighten off the horses. I walked with 3 guys, an English guy, a Welsh guy, and a Danish guy. The English guy was a fiercely proud Brit, fiercely proud of his British heritage. And he wore it like, you know, he carried it like a shield of honor. His brother was Welsh, and he'd been through a terrible time. And he very much had all the time, his heart was closed, you know, his heart was closed. I'm not going to talk about anything. I'm not going to share anything. I'm too tough and too, you know, I'm not going to. And then slowly but surely, you know, his heart opened, you know. And I remember saying to him, I think it's because the backpack's like pulling back on your shoulders, you know. It's like, I mean, he goes, well, if that's what it is, you know, that's what it is. And then this Danish fellow was the oldest soul I've ever met. I'd never met anybody like him. You could just tell by talking to him, man, you've been here many times, you know. And I really felt this joy of being in his presence. So that's the line, a lion's heart, that's the Englishman, an opening heart, that's the Welshman, and a soul as old as slate, that's the Danish guy. And these are lyrics just come off my head. I didn't even know what I was singing. Anyway, I got to town in Hontanas that night. I wrote it down on a piece of paper. Still got it here somewhere. It's all scrunched up. And I didn't even pick up the guitar. I didn't even say, oh, what chords will I play or anything. I just knew. And that night, Gary, the lion's heart, was going back to the UK. And we're having dinner in the municipal albergue in Hontanas, downstairs. They've done it up a little bit. They've renovated it a bit. One wall was 7 years old. The other wall was 700 years old. And we sat at the table and I said, oh, can I play you a new song I wrote today? And everyone said, sure. And the rest is history.
Oh my goodness. Man, I love hearing about that. I can't tell you. It's on my Camino playlist. I have listened to that song. I can't even tell you how many times. And now to know more of the history of it and some of the lines is so special. I wonder if you taught everybody your guitar, because I was thinking about that today. About now there's a lot of talk about this digital stamp, you know, that might be coming about.
Oh, no, really? I know. I heard about that because of COVID.
Yes. And so I was thinking about your guitar and about the stamps and, you know, how priceless, you know, it already is. But if we go to those digital stamps, you know, this kind of thing wouldn't be possible. And I just love that you did that on your guitar.
Yeah. I probably shouldn't have, because it's just about ruined, but it's so cool. It's so cool. If I can get in close, if you can see the little gold tortoise.
Yes.
That's from spending time with some Basque people. That's that one there is De las Mulas. This is, and there, and then right in the middle is Casa Susie under the street.
You just interviewed Casa.
Beat up. I got the crosses in Samos, and I got the yellow arrow in Osabrero. And in France, when you're walking in France, you follow the red and white stripes in France. So yeah, there you go. Yeah.
You can sing us out when we're at the very end of this, if you want. I kind of want to hop over to talk about the podcast a little bit, because like I said, I've hiked many, many miles listening to your podcast. And I wonder what your theory is, Dan, on what is it about the Camino that we all have so many stories from it, right? And every single pilgrim, even when they tell me they don't really have a story, it wasn't that remarkable, theirs isn't as good as someone else's, and I'll start talking to them and they have an amazing story. So what do you think it is about the Camino, first off, that gives us this story? And why do we pilgrims love to talk about it? I mean, you've interviewed countless people now. What is it about? What's the thread that's running through?
I truly believe that it's the opportunity for us to forget who we are and where we come from, and simply to be a little beating heart, a bag of bones, a wandering soul, and a friend. So the whole world should be like that. But we all know that the world's not like that. So here's this little tiny ecosystem, this little tiny environment where you can go and be the best person you are, to quote my friend Lindsay Teixeira, who said it a couple of weeks ago. Be the best version of yourself. Talk to somebody. It doesn't matter what they do for a living. It doesn't matter how much money they have. It doesn't matter what side of the line drawn in the sand that they come from that determines what country you're from. I mean, right now, we've got people who can't get vaccines because they live on one side of a line on a page than the other side. And so they're done. Right. It's insanity. It's insanity. And surely in 2020 or 2021, we've come so far not to let stuff like that happen. So here's this tiny little opportunity for you to go over there, because you hear about it. And I genuinely believe that all of the writing about the Camino, all of the movies and the videos and discussions like this, who wouldn't want to walk the Camino de Santiago after listening to our podcasts or watching videos like this, watching The Way, reading books about it? Who wouldn't want to do it? So it's natural that there's a calling. You know, there's a yearning to get there because you think, I want to experience that.
Right.
It is so joyous and so excited, and appears to be. I hear very few people being critical. Oh, sure, people talk about big bugs and snoring and stuff, and 90 people in an albergue and what have you. But by and large, it's the best of people having the best time and taking a little moment out of their lives to go away and do that. And this is one thing I also think as well, Leigh, is that you still can do it knowing that you've got the other life at home. You can go home. You're not losing everything to experience this sort of halcyon existence.
Yes.
You know that you can go home whenever you want, really. Yeah. And I think even if you're not particularly adventurous, you can go on a great adventure.
Yes.
That's a great thing.
Right.
How old you are, no matter if you're just fresh out of university or college, no matter if you're fresh out of high school, no matter if you're 75 years old and you've been diagnosed with some sort of slow creeping condition that one day is going to mean that you can't go on adventures anymore. You can go on an adventure.
Yeah.
And I walked with a couple from the Netherlands on my first Camino. I walked with them for about 3 days. They had walked from the Netherlands. Well, the wife had, and she had blood cancer and she knew this would be my last trip. She said, this is just the best way to finish it all, ever.
Wow.
Yeah. We went to Mass at Leon. And then later that evening, I said, look, you go and do what you want to do. I'm going to do what I want to do. And later that evening, I was in the cafe right opposite the cathedral. They wandered past, said, sit down, join me. There was a couple of other guys there from Germany and stuff. And we all had dinner together. And I said, a good day? She said, just the best. just the best. I thought, this is a person dying. That's awesome. If you can say you're having one of the best days, just potentially months before you drop off this mortal coil. Go for the adventure. Go and do it. And then, because it's so fantastic, you'll want to come home and talk to people about it. And, and someone will go onto a Pilgrim Facebook page or something and say, oh, I was thinking about the boots, And you very rarely see anybody be cranky or narky or rude or anything in those environments. Occasionally you do, but that's just natural. That's life. But that's what I think it is. Yeah, the opportunity to be the best you can, be the best version. It's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah, totally.
Like here we are, like just you and I chatting. Well, you're in Bainbridge Island in Seattle, off the coast of Seattle. I'm in Sydney. We're just chatting. And somebody down the line, someone watch it and go, that resonated with me. I think I'm going to throw a pack on my back. I'm going to head off. And you'll end up in Puente Lorena right there, under those. And there you go. Prayers Beneath the Arches. That's from the song, Prayers Beneath the Arches. So there you go.
Beautiful. Yeah, but that seed gets planted, and I think people see these interviews or they see the Facebook posts, and it's just seeing the connections that you can get to others and the support. I mean, I just feel like this Camino family is just one of the best things in the world, and I just want to talk about it nonstop. I mean, that's why we have to do these interviews, it gives us more chance to talk. And I love hearing the stories. I could listen to your stories all night, but I promise you an hour, and I'm right at that mark.
Oh, okay. That's okay. I don't mind. I don't mind.
Even though I have a million other questions I want to ask you, but maybe we can have you back for a happy hour or something sometime. Yeah, if you want to sing this out, you're more than welcome to do it, but you don't have to.
I'd love to. So I'll just take you through now. The second verse is cellos on a soundboard. There they are, the cellos on a soundboard. Beneath a field of stars. There you are, the field of stars. Prayers, arches. I just showed you the prayers. That's the arches in Puente Lorena. A great story there, but that's a song on my album called The Flamehead Spanish Witch. This crazy Spanish woman told me this story about the little sparrow who cleans the picture of the Virgin Mary in the bell tower there, and it completely transfixed me. But anyway, that's the story for another day. Here we are now. We've arrived in Santiago. Prayers Beneath the Arches, sunflowers in bloom, all those things, those beautiful things, those lovely things that you see on the Camino. And so that I've said this, and I'm certain there'll be people who watch this say, I've heard Dan say that before, that I've played this song. The very next day after Hontanas, a doctor from Belgium came up to me and he said, where are you staying tonight? And I said, I don't know. I never know where I'm staying.
Right.
What? What do you want to know for? And he said, I want to hear your song. And I said, what song? And he said, the Camino song. I said, how did you know about that? And he said, someone videoed your song last night, and we all were watching it in the cafe this morning, and we all stood around, we watched it 3 times, and we all want to see you play it tonight. And I said, well, I don't know where I'll be, to be honest, but I'll come and find you if you like. We'll all be. So that night in the town square, everyone was singing the song.
Oh, wow.
By the time I got to Santiago, people were singing it back to me. And then I came home to Australia. I wanted to record the song. I did some gigs, got a bit of money in the bank, and went to see a guy, this mad scientist who still uses tape to record, and these big old vintage machines that take hours to warm up, when you go in, it smells like the TV your parents had in the corner of the room in the 1970s. And all the valves, and he's like there. And I said, I don't want any computers, no computers. He said, no. All the microphones are all like 50 years old. I said, I don't want anybody doing double takes or dropping things in. I just want to bring the musicians in and play it to the tape. He said, let's do it. So I handpicked all these guys, and we all went in. Took my young son in, who's here right now downstairs, and he sang harmonies, and we did it. What you hear on the record is the third take. The first take, I didn't like the sticks. I didn't like the sticks he was using. It was a bit. Then the second time around, he was hitting the cymbals too much. So I said, take the cymbals off the drum kit, use those brushes, and this is the third take that we recorded. And so I've been overseas. I've played it now in Europe, and I've played it in the UK. I've played it in Spain. I've played it in America, of course. I've played it 3 times for the Prime Minister here in Australia at his house. Been invited to play the song 3 times for the Prime Minister. I've been on television, as you saw, Leigh. I've been on the radio. I don't know how many times I've been in the crazy. I got to number 2 on the charts in Australia. I spent 4 weeks at number 2 in the charts.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, for one 2-week period, we sold more records in Australia than Bruce Springsteen sold. So there you are. And the best thing about, right, I toured Australia. I did 18 shows at the big country festival here in Australia. It's a big thing. I won the big competition for new talent and all sorts of stuff, even though I'm 50-something years old. So I've had this extraordinary journey. This song has just given me so much. And yet here it was, just sort of almost like handed to me while I was walking the Meseta.
Yeah.
Out of the blue. Just here you are. Here. It's like, wow. You know, and the best thing about it is it's brought us together today. I love this. Okay, sound okay? All right, there we go. El Camino roses, Santo Domingo grows. Believe you can, you're halfway there. 7 bills to 4. Frighten off the horses, and also waits. A lion's heart, an opening heart, and a soul to slay. Somewhere along the way, I hope you find what you're looking for. Somewhere along the way, cellos on a soundboard. Stars, La Familia growing, crossing fields afar. Will you walk beside me? Will you lead the way? Your footsteps find the fountain, oh, they carry me away. Somewhere along the way, somewhere along the way, I hope you find what you're looking for. Somewhere along the way, how will I ever forget the Spanish sunrise, the Spanish sunset, El Peregrino Cantante, fullness of the moon, pressed beneath the arches, and sunflowers in bloom. Words on parchment paper, filling empty room. I hope this blessing, such as it is, finds you in full bloom. Somewhere along the way, somewhere along the way, I hope you find what you're looking for. Somewhere along the way, somewhere along the way, My Camino. Somewhere along the way, I hope you find what you're looking for.
bringing tears to my eyes.
Isn't that a great party trick?
I'm just not knowing the meaning of some of the lyrics. And like I said, you just don't even know how many times I've listened to this song and how much it inspires me. And
It's amazing. I say to you, Leigh, I don't know where it came from.
well, we know where it's from. Camino magic.
That's right. I don't want to know where it came from. And I pinch myself every day. I came home and sang it for my family. They're all going, that's a pretty good song. That's a pretty good song. And then, because I didn't demo it, I didn't do a rough take or anything. I just played it for people. I didn't, I think my son once recorded it for me on the mobile phone so that I could send it to the musicians so that they could kind of get a feel for it and stuff. But really, we didn't play it ever together before we went in the studio. And that's the third take is what you're listening to. And it's incredible. Incredible. And we just got it right. Sound is right. It's funny that the piano accordion works really well with the double bass, works really well with the ukulele. And there's also in there a Moroccan 8-stringed instrument. I can't quite think of the name of it off the top of my head, but there's a weird instrument in there as well. So there's lots of different stuff happening, and it just came out perfectly.
Yeah. Well, I encourage anyone that's watching this or listening to this tonight to make sure they check out the YouTube video of it, because the video to the song is just gorgeous as well.
That's Bill and Jennifer Bennett. Yeah. What a trip that was. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I was just thinking, Dan, wow, your mom just pulls out this book and says, yeah, maybe you ought to read this. And what that moment has brought to your life is incredible, first off.
Yeah, that's right.
And by what she did in that moment, that seed, all the things that have happened since, all the people that you've inspired to go on Camino through your podcast, the things that you have done for this Camino family, giving so many people a space to tell their Camino stories is such a gift. So I'm just kind of really right now feeling a little speechless about it. Like, that's easy.
I appreciate it very, very much. I don't want anything more than the friendship that, people say, thank you, Dan. I say, I do it because I want to do it. I love doing it. I love doing these meetings, these interviews, these chats with people, these Zoom things, with Pilgrim groups around the world. I absolutely love it. So it's just something that, I don't know why. I guess I go back to the very first question, you keep trying and you keep moving, you keep the energy going, and you hope that one day in the not too distant future, you'll step out on the Camino again, and maybe I'll meet someone who's there because they listen to one of my podcasts, and that'll be all the thanks I need. Full stop right there.
Oh, we don't need to add another word. Thank you, Dan Mullins.
Thanks, Leigh.
I am just honored to have had this time with you, and I know that someone's going to be super inspired to go on a pilgrimage now after seeing this tonight and getting to know you. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to get to know you better. I know so many people listen to your podcast every week, and I know I've probably been very curious about your story, and this has just been a special treat, and you are a gift to the Camino family, and we thank you so much.
Thank you, Leigh. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. Please make sure, I know you're probably already listening to Dan's podcast, but please don't forget to listen to his next episode. Every single one of them are fantastic. And if you haven't downloaded his song, please do add it to your Camino playlist, because you'll want to listen to it all the time like me. So thank you, everyone, for being here tonight.